Human heart anatomy. Detailed structure by structure. Heart. The human heart is a hollow, muscular organ that acts as the central pump of the circulatory system. It is situated in the thoracic cavity between the two lungs, behind the sternum, and slightly towards the left side. The heart continuously receives blood, pumps it to the lungs for gas exchange, and then pumps oxygen, rich blood to the entire body. Apex of the heart. The apex is the pointed lower end of the heart. It is mainly formed by the left ventricle and points downward, forward, and towards the left side. The apex is important clinically because the heartbeat can normally be felt in this region on the chest wall. Base of the heart. The base is the broad upper and posterior part of the heart. It is formed mainly by the left atrium, with contributions from the right atrium. Several major blood vessels are connected to this region, including the aorta, pulmonary trunk, superior vena cava, and pulmonary veins. Auricles. An auricle is a small, ear-like muscular pouch projecting from an atrium. The right auricle projects from the right atrium, while the left auricle projects from the left atrium. Auricles increase the capacity of the atria and extend over parts of the large blood vessels near the heart. Right atrium. The right atrium receives oxygen and poor blood returning from the body. The superior vena cava brings blood from the upper regions of the body, while the inferior vena cava brings blood from the lower regions. The right atrium passes this blood through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. Superior vena cava. The superior vena cava is a large vein that carries oxygen, poor blood from the head, neck, upper limbs, and upper part of the chest into the right atrium. It enters the upper portion of the right atrium. Inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is another large vein that carries oxygen, poor blood from the abdomen, pelvis, and lower limbs towards the heart. It enters the lower part of the right atrium. Tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve lies between the right atrium and right ventricle. It normally has 3 cusps. When the right ventricle contracts, the valve closes and prevents blood from returning to the right atrium. Chordae tendineae. The chordae tendineae are strong, thin connective tissue cords attached to the valve cusps inside the ventricles. They resemble fine strings and help prevent the atrioventricular valves from turning inside out during ventricular contraction. Papillary muscles. Papillary muscles are specialized muscular projections from the ventricular walls. They are attached to the chordae tendineae when the ventricles contract. The papillary muscles also contract and help maintain proper closure of the tricuspid and mitral valves. Right ventricle. The right ventricle receives oxygen, poor blood from the right atrium, and pumps it towards the lungs. Its muscular wall is thinner than that of the left ventricle because it only needs to pump blood through the pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary trunk arises from the right ventricle and carries oxygen, poor blood towards the lungs. It divides into the right pulmonary artery and left pulmonary artery. Left pulmonary artery. The left pulmonary artery carries oxygen and poor blood from the pulmonary trunk towards the left lung. Despite being called an artery, it carries oxygen, poor blood because arteries are defined by the direction of blood flow away from the heart, not by oxygen content. Left pulmonary veins. The left pulmonary veins carry oxygen, rich blood from the left lung back to the left atrium. They are veins because they carry blood towards the heart, even though the blood they contain is oxygen-rich. Left atrium. The left atrium receives oxygen-rich blood from the pulmonary veins. It then transfers this blood through the mitral valve into the left ventricle. Mitral valve. The mitral valve, also called the bicuspid valve, lies between the left atrium and left ventricle. It normally has 2 cusps. It allows blood to move from the left atrium into the left ventricle and prevents backward movement during ventricular contraction. Bicuspid valve. The term bicuspid valve refers to the mitral valve because it has 2 main cusps. It should not be confused with the bicuspid aortic valve, which is a congenital variation involving the aortic valve. Left ventricle. The left ventricle is the strongest pumping chamber of the heart. It has a very thick muscular wall because it must generate enough pressure to send oxygen, rich blood through the aorta and throughout the entire body. Aortic valve. The aortic valve lies between the left ventricle and the aorta. It opens when the left ventricle contracts, allowing blood to enter the aorta. It closes when the ventricle relaxes, preventing blood from flowing back into the ventricle. Aorta. The aorta is the largest artery in the human body. It receives oxygen-rich blood from the left ventricle and distributes it to the systemic circulation. It begins at the heart and continues through several major anatomical sections. Ascending aorta. The ascending aorta is the first portion of the aorta. It begins immediately above the aortic valve. The coronary arteries originate from the beginning of the ascending aorta and supply blood to the heart muscle. Aortic arch. The aortic arch is the curved portion of the aorta located between the ascending aorta and descending aorta. Three major branches arise from the aortic arch: the brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid artery, and left subclavian artery. These vessels supply blood to the head, neck, and upper limbs. Descending aorta. The descending aorta continues downward from the aortic arch. Its thoracic portion supplies structures in the chest, and after passing through the diaphragm it continues as the abdominal aorta, which supplies structures of the abdomen and lower regions. Interatrial septum. The interatrial septum is the wall separating the right atrium from the left atrium. It prevents direct mixing of blood between the two atria. A depression called the fossa ovalis is visible on the right atrial side of this septum and represents the remnant of the fetal foramen ovale. Interventricular septum. The interventricular septum separates the right ventricle from the left ventricle. It consists of muscular and membranous portions. It prevents direct mixing of blood between the ventricles and also contains important components of the electrical conduction system of the heart. Chordae tendini and papillary muscles. The chordae tendini connect the cusps of the tricuspid and mitral valves to papillary muscles. During ventricular contraction, the papillary muscles tighten the chordae tendini. This stabilizes the valve cusps and helps prevent them from being forced backward into the atria. Sinoatrial node. The sinoatrial node is a specialized group of cardiac muscle cells located in the upper part of the right atrium near the entrance of the superior vena cava. It normally generates the electrical impulses that initiate each heartbeat. For this reason, it is commonly described as the natural pacemaker of the heart. Atrioventricular node. The atrioventricular node is located near the lower part of the interatrial septum. It receives the electrical impulse from the atria and briefly delays its transmission before passing it into the ventricular conduction system. This delay allows the ventricles time to fill with blood before they contract. Arteries. Arteries are blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. Most arteries carry oxygen-rich blood, but the pulmonary arteries are an important exception because they carry oxygen-poor blood from the right ventricle towards the lungs. Veins. Veins carry blood towards the heart. Most veins carry oxygen-poor blood, but the pulmonary veins are an important exception because they carry oxygen-rich blood from the lungs to the left atrium. Ventricular wall. The ventricular walls contain cardiac muscle called myocardium. The left ventricular wall is considerably thicker than the right ventricular wall because the left ventricle must generate much greater pressure to circulate blood throughout the entire body. Coronary arteries. The coronary arteries arise near the beginning of the ascending aorta and supply oxygen-rich blood to the heart muscle itself. The major coronary arteries and their branches distribute blood across different regions of the myocardium. Cardiac veins. Cardiac veins collect oxygen-poor blood from the heart muscle. Much of this blood drains into the coronary sinus, which then empties into the right atrium. Pericardium. The pericardium is the protective sac surrounding the heart. It helps hold the heart in position and reduces friction during repeated cardiac movements. Fluid between its layers allows the heart to move smoothly during each heartbeat. Epicardium. The epicardium is the outer layer of the heart wall. It is closely associated with the inner surface of the serous pericardium and covers the external surface of the heart. Myocardium. The myocardium is the thick muscular layer of the heart wall. It is responsible for the contraction that generates the force required to pump blood through the pulmonary and systemic circulations. Endocardium. The endocardium is the smooth inner lining of the heart chambers and covers the surfaces of the heart valves. Its smooth surface helps blood flow through the chambers with minimal resistance. Pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary circulation carries oxygen and poor blood from the right ventricle to the lungs through the pulmonary trunk and pulmonary arteries. In the lungs, carbon dioxide is released and oxygen is taken up. Oxygen-rich blood then returns to the left atrium through the pulmonary veins. Systemic circulation. Systemic circulation begins when the left ventricle pumps oxygen-rich blood into the aorta. The blood travels through arteries and smaller vessels to body tissues, where oxygen and nutrients are delivered. Oxygen and poor blood then returns to the right atrium through veins, including the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Complete pathway of blood through the heart. Oxygen, poor blood from the body enters the right atrium through the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. It passes through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. The right ventricle pumps it through the pulmonary valve, pulmonary trunk, and pulmonary arteries to the lungs. After receiving oxygen in the lungs, the blood returns through the pulmonary veins to the left atrium. It passes through the mitral valve into the left ventricle. The left ventricle then pumps it through the aortic valve into the aorta. From the aorta, the oxygen-rich blood is distributed throughout the body. Conclusion: the human heart is much more than a simple pump. Its 4 chambers, septa, valves, chordae tendineae, papillary muscles, coronary vessels, major arteries and veins, electrical conduction system, and muscular walls work together with remarkable precision. The right side mainly handles pulmonary circulation, while the left side drives systemic circulation. Understanding each structure individually makes the complete pathway of blood through the heart much easier to understand. Subscribe and follow Bioenigma X Jivesh for more detailed, simple, and easy to understand biology and medical science topics.